Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another Best Ball stream here with Occupy Fantasy. My name is Chris. I am your Best Ball manager here. I'm joined, like usual, by Chuck, another one of our Best Ball contributors and one of our NBA DFS analysts here at Occupy Fantasy. And we're excited today to bring you some analysis of our favorite rookie NFL players to consider for fantasy drafts this year. We're going to be giving you our top 10 plays, plus some other diamonds in the rough. And when I say our top 10 plays, Chuck, I don't mean like the top 10 drafted players, the top 10 that everybody else is talking about. I mean the 10 players that we are most interested in for our rosters. And I think that's going to lead to a pretty interesting discussion here. I'm going to throw it to you in a second, but I can't get started without mentioning once again that we're super happy to be partnered with DraftKings. This video is presented by them and sponsored by them. And we're super thrilled to once again be bringing you another DraftKings Best Ball draft today.
Yep, pretty excited to get into the rookies. I have some takes, so hopefully you're on the same side, or maybe we differ, and we'll get into some good discussion.
And Chuck, as you know, football season will be here soon. And if you're drafting early like we are this year, DraftKings Best Ball is the move. If you've never played Best Ball before, it's simple. You draft your fantasy team, and that is it. No lineups, no waivers. Your lineup is automatically set with your best player scores each week. And right now, DraftKings is giving all customers a can't-miss offer. Draft one, get one. You enter a lineup in the $15 million Best Ball contest for just $20, the contest that I am actually going to be talking about today, and you will get another ticket to play in that same contest for free for a share of that $15 million prize pool, giving you a second shot to take home a big hit. And speaking of that contest, I'm in the second round in a contest right now. We took Jeanty, the top rookie available in the first round, and now we're looking at something to go with him in the second round. Chuck, what do you think right off the rip here? Because I only got 20 seconds. Bowers with Jeanty or no?
I'm not really into the top tight ends, but I do like it for the correlation if we want to go with a little Raiders stack.
I think I'm going to go. This is tough for me. I think I can get a better tight end option later. I'm going to go with another receiver. And I did just click on T. Higgins. Be honest, I kind of meant to click on a different player, but that's fine. I still like Higgins here. Top offense in the Bengals, and we can potentially get Joe Burrow, or we can just leave Higgins by himself. But we mentioned last show, we still want to make sure we have 3 to 4 receivers in like the first 7 rounds. So I'm happy to do that instead of tight end because there's a lot of tight end value left.
Who is the receiver that you were trying to get?
I meant to click on Rashee Rice, to be honest with you, because I'm kind of interested in this particular contest. I guess it doesn't matter, but I do like having a couple shots at game stacks, and that's obviously an interdivision rivalry, the Raiders and the Chiefs. So whether that matters or not, Chuck, that was where my head was at.
Hey, it's all good. I mean, I mentioned it in our first video, and if you guys haven't watched that, make sure you go back and check out our channel for that one. But I talked about how I'm not too concerned about player takes at this point. I just want to draft structurally what I think is the right structure, and taking a top wide receiver in the second round is definitely along those lines.
Yeah, I'm not like super deviating from ADP there with that, so I mean I can definitely live with it for sure. All right, there's a giant gap between Jeanty and then the next rookie that comes off the board. I believe it's basically the 4th round is when we're going to see the next player that will come off. Looking at ADP, that it appears to be Tet McMillan with the Carolina Panthers. It's usually him or Amarian Hampton from the Chargers and Travis Hunter from the Jaguars. All those guys go fairly close together. And I think that's kind of like your consensus top 4 rookies for fantasy drafts this year, Chuck. It gets kind of a little bit more muddied, I guess, behind that in terms of every user's preference. But what do you think about that top 4 of Jeanty, McMillan, Hampton, and Hunter? That seems pretty good, right? Agree or disagree?
Yeah, I'm pretty solid on that group of 4. I wasn't sure about Hunter, but it looks like Jacksonville wants to use him as a full-time receiver, and he's one of the top athletes we've ever seen come through the draft. So I'm pretty sure that he'll be okay as long as he gets those snaps on offense. That's one thing I was going to ask you with Travis Hunter. Did you project him to be a full-time offensive player?
I am. I'm projecting him to be basically the other starting receiver across from Brian Thomas. I have them both ranked pretty high in my personal rankings, which once again, I should mention will be available in the Occupy Fantasy Discord. probably by tomorrow evening at the absolute latest. So I'm definitely interested in him. And I think we actually have some reporting out of Jaguars camp that they think he has the ability to play the full game on both sides of the ball. So we have to be interested in that, right?
Yeah, I mean, that would be quite an accomplishment if he could perform at the top level on both sides.
Okay. I'm going to go with Scary Terry here for my next pick. And I think that's because I feel like I have an outside chance at still being able to pair him with Jaden Daniels, which would be kind of a nice start, I think, here. High upside offense here with Washington, as well as Higgins and Jeanty. So that's what we're hoping for. So because I spoke it into existence, it's probably not going to happen now. All right.
You know, with
Behind,
Terry,
go ahead.
I was just going to mention with Terry McLaurin, that's one of the guys that I've seen fall so much, and I don't really understand it because I love clicking on him at ADP.
Speaking of rookies, he went a little bit higher than he usually does. Chuck Tet just came off the board directly after my pick. This probably a good time to pull up our ADP tracker and let's look at where Tet falls. He's usually going around pick 45 in the fourth round. He basically went a full round earlier than normal in this contest today. But concept we talked a little bit about on the initial show with our strategy, closing line value. I mean, is this a trend we think will continue with McMillan here? Is his ADP going to rise, or what do you think?
So we know that rookies tend to overperform ADP, right? And they tend to come on in the second half of the season. And so the rookies kind of have been pushed up because the field understands that now after so many years of best ball and fantasy football. Tet McMillan opened at ADP 50. He's currently around ADP 45. I wouldn't be surprised if he moved up a little bit, but it seems like this is probably around the area where he goes because Travis Hunter has actually fallen a little bit from his opening ADP, if I'm not mistaken. So it's interesting to see how the field is reacting to those guys. Yeah, Travis Hunter started at 41. Now he's going at ADP 50 after Ted McMillan. So that's pretty interesting.
I think it's important to keep in mind that when it comes to playing these games, these draft contests, it's yes, obviously having the best information is important and it's definitely something that everyone should be interested in, but it's more important to use the information that you have available to you effectively. And I guess where I'm going with that is we can simply use publicly available analysis from this fantastic community of fantasy football players to just kind of back up our point here, because you just mentioned rookies tend to outperform their ADP, and there's plenty of great analysts that have made a living putting content out about this great game that you and I, everybody watching, loves. But there's a bunch of easily accessible free content on the internet that also gives us some of these conclusions that we can work off of. And I'm kind of getting to this in a roundabout way. The fantasy football subreddit has a pretty good post here. I'll put it on the screen really quickly about a 10-year period between 2013 and 2022. Shout out to this author exiled from Twitter, where rookies have outperformed their historical ADP. 63% of rookie wide receivers specifically outperformed their ADP versus just 45% of veteran wide receiver players. So that right there, Chuck, is a really important thing to just kind of keep in mind, that no one really knows how to forecast these rookies as a whole. Yeah, we know who like the top guys are going to be, but as a general rule, a lot of these guys are going to outperform where they're going on the draft board, and that alone makes them really, really important players to be considering up and down the draft board at different spots.
Yeah, and when considering these guys outperforming ADP, a lot of it is just going to be how many fantasy points did they score over the season. But I don't think that's very representative of what they actually contribute to your team because, maybe they're not performing as well in the beginning of the season. They really come on in the second half of the season. It's going to lower all their averages, their total scores from that first half of the season. But, if we focus just on the second half of the season, I'm sure it's even more extreme with the rookies.
So my wish was granted. I didn't really have to think too much about what to do there. We've got our very first correlation locked in with Daniels, or our first quarterback wide receiver correlation locked in with Daniels. and McLaurin. And now, when we look at our Stack Seeker, which is a great tool that we have at OccupyFantasy.com, completely for free, we look at those Washington Commanders, and I should be prioritizing Dallas Cowboys, Philadelphia Eagles, and the New York Giants to get some correlation throughout the playoff weeks here in this $15 millionaire contest, Chuck. And there are plenty of opportunities to get players from those teams on this roster. So I'm feeling pretty good about this start.
Yeah, I mean, Jaden Daniels, it's hard to think that he's not going to finish top 5, so love that start. And then I was going to ask you, is Travis Hunter still available?
I think I have the draft board back on the screen, and he is still here, as is Hampton. So neither of those players has come off the board yet.
Okay. Yeah, I have just, Jeanty is in a tier of his own, but then Ted McMillan, Amarian Hampton, and Travis Hunter are the next guys for me that I feel pretty comfortable drafting around ADP. And if they fall a little bit, like I mentioned in our first video, definitely make sure to check that out if you guys haven't. But when these guys fall past value, I just can't help myself. I want to click on them, especially if I'm interested in the player.
And I think that's where my head is at here. I'll be interested in Hunter. I will be interested in Hampton, but the other player that I'm considering, which would be a little bit of a drop here, he's probably going to come off the board right as I'm speaking about him, is didn't expect that one. Devontae Smith with the Eagles would be a good pick here just for correlation with Washington as well. Travion Henderson. Wasn't expecting to see him go ahead of those other guys, other rookie players we were talking about. He has second round draft pick with the New England Patriots this year. I don't want to be out of pocket on that. Let me just double check. Yep, drafted with the 6th overall pick of the second round by the Patriots out of Ohio State, the Ohio State University. What do you think about Henderson this year, Chuck?
He seems good, right? I mean, Ramondre is a good running back, but he's not quite, I think, what people want. And so it's just a matter of how much they split up the work. But I don't think anyone would be surprised if Trevion took over, as the lead back. He's pretty much a stud in college. So it was a 7.1 yards per carry last season. I don't know. I see over 5 yards per carry. I get excited.
Yeah, we know that quarterback is Burrow came off the board. Excuse me. We know that running back is a volume based position. That's like the most important thing for fantasy success. And the only thing that gets me a little bit leery of Henderson, I think his ADP is fair. This was a little bit of an aggressive selection. He usually goes around pick 65 or so. They're kind of comping him to James White, for those of you familiar with the Patriots championship teams. There was another quote I saw today from Chad Graff out of the Athletic about how they think right now they're not sure if he can handle more than like a third down passing down role. So I think that would be concerning for his volume. Conversely, that would actually be a good argument for still being interested in Ramondre Stevenson a few rounds later.
Yeah, and I mentioned this in the first video too. I'm usually interested in the cheaper guy, especially when there's that wide of a gap in ADP. And so we already saw Ramondre be okay. And so, hopefully he'll be not terrible.
All right. So I did end up with Hunter. I'm more than happy with the ability to have access to what we think his ceiling outcome could be, which I think is a top 10 wide receiver in fantasy conservatively this year, if not higher. But now, first 5 rounds of the draft, I have 2 rookies. The rookies that we kind of said were the consensus top 4 plays are now officially off the board. 2-part question for you. Should I continue drafting rookies? Is there like an amount where we would be like, okay, that's too many for one team? And then 2, how do you feel about where we're at now with this rookie class and players to consider? Is this, I'll just let you riff from there because I think we feel similarly about this, but I want you to kind of go first.
I want to draft 4, 5, 6 rookies on most teams. I think more than that, you're leaving a little bit too much projection on the table just because, like I mentioned, we're not expecting these guys to really give us those ceiling games in the first part of the season. But I mean, you have like 2 of the top rookies that we can get, so I'd love to target some of the late guys that we're looking at. And this next group of running backs coming up, we already saw one go off the field or off the board in Trevion Henderson, but RJ Harvey, Quinton Judkins, and Caleb Johnson are that next big group. And I don't know, like you said, running back is a position that we really want the volume, and I'm just not sure that any of those guys get all the volume for their team or the majority of the volume anyway.
In general, I'll make a pick here, I guess, and then I'll give you a little bit more of my overall sense for this class. I guess really quickly, I think the running backs I feel better about as a whole in this class than the wide receivers. I think there's a big drop off at wide receiver in terms of
Yeah.
upside that we're expecting in year one here in this class.
What I was talking about with the running backs being worried about their volume, I mean, some of these receivers, I was not happy about the teams they got drafted to. Matthew Golden on Golden Bay sounds awesome. Could be the wide receiver one, maybe 1A, 1B with Jaden Reed, but after him, like Egbuka going to Tampa Bay sounds awesome if we know that he's going to be a starter, but they have three solid wide receivers there, so it's going to be hard for him to, really break into the starting unit unless an injury happens or something there. And then beyond them, I mean, guys are just going a little bit later. So
I ended up just clicking on Waddle here because I think he's fallen about 10 picks. And overall, rookie, veteran, you and I are well on the record that we're looking for value picks. And Jalen Waddle in the 6th round. I mean, like, what if Tyreek Hill is cooked, dude? He's getting a little older. I know he's very talented. Waddle seems like being able to draft him at his floor a little bit here in the 6th round.
yep, and it's another one of those guys who underperformed that we could possibly be getting at a value. So I love it.
Okay. When we look at the ADP here on DraftKings for rookie players,
Hmm.
in the top 10, there are 4 receivers, and the rest are all running backs. So we have 6 running backs, and these guys are all going in the first 100 picks. It's Jeanty, McMillan, Hampton, Hunter, RJ Harvey, who just came off the board with Denver, Henderson, who went way ahead of ADP in this contest. And you already mentioned a couple of these guys. Quinshon Judkins with the Browns, Caleb Johnson with the Steelers, who's still available in this contest, Matthew Golden with Green Bay, first round receiver, and then Emeka Egbuka with Tampa Bay would be this would be your ADP top 10. I'm not saying this is you and I's top 10, but this is the, I guess, consensus a top 10 of the player pool right now. So with that in mind, which player or players in this top 10 do you think are overrated right now?
I don't know if I'd necessarily if they're overrated. Well, RJ Harvey's ADP is probably going to fall a little bit because we saw J.K. Dobbins sign in Denver, right? And he went up about 40 spots in ADP. And I talked about this last week with the unsigned free agents. Just draft them at the end of drafts because they're going to go up no matter where they land. But I mean, J.K. Dobbins there definitely hurts RJ Harvey's potential. They still have a couple other backs there in Audric Estime and Jaleel McLaughlin. So I'm not as excited about it, but I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he ended up being, the lead guy there. We know how valuable Denver running backs are.
So now, as it comes back to me briefly, maybe the antithesis of a rookie pick. I mean, right on ADP, as long as when Longview cooperates, which he did. Travis Kelsey, is this kind of the line of elite tight end for you, or is he below that line?
Uh, that's not a fair question. Travis Kelsey, man, he's an elite tight end.
Then we're going to lock him in the 7th round. And look, I don't think we're going to be able to pair him. It doesn't seem likely that we're going to be able to pair him. We're not going to be able to pair him with Mahomes because Mahomes went the round before. But that's fine. I'm fine with having a upside in a PPR format here on DraftKings with Kelsey. Okay, back to rookies with Judkins, who just came off the board after me. Lot of this is superficial to some degree, but we have Judkins, we have Dylan Sampson, who was another rookie drafted by Cleveland a little later in the draft, and then we have the veteran Jerome Ford in that backfield. So that seems kind of tough to forecast at this point since we're not in training camp yet and we're not really getting a ton of inside information on how they plan to use those guys. And that's something that's going to drive this ADP, right? Like as soon as we get a little bit more of a sense from live reps, from boots on the ground, so to speak, we're not really going to see a tremendous shift in the perception of these players.
No, and like I said in the first video, and a lot of the ADP movement is going to be based on people recommending these players. We're not going to get much real news, but Yeah, we can still take advantage of this. I mean, you mentioned Jerome Ford. I think he's a great late round pick. He's the cheaper guy. But I do recognize that Judkins definitely has a higher ceiling.
So this, in my mind, um, I put him in my top 10 for rookies to consider this year, even though he's probably outside the consensus ADP. Not Judkins, sorry, the player I'm about to discuss. I think it's got to be Cam Ward
Hmm.
with the Tennessee Titans. I mean, if we're just strictly talking about rookies, I'm interested in drafting uh, a core tenant from strategy. We want to be interested in players that are going to be playing definitely at the end of the season in those playoff weeks in these contests. I mean, he's probably going to be playing right from week one. I don't see any rational reason why they would go back to Will Levis here over Cam Ward if both are healthy. But the reason I wanted to discuss this now is that I think outside of Cam Ward, unlike the past few seasons, I feel like he's the only rookie quarterback I really care about right now, at least in this contest format.
I mean, he's really the only one, maybe Tyler Show. I guess we don't have that much confidence. He's the only guy that we have confidence is going to start from week one. The last two seasons we've been talking about Bryce Young and Caleb Williams, and I don't think either of them really panned out, although they were going kind of late in drafts. Bryce Young kind of showed at the end of last year, so I'll be going back to him. Caleb Williams, ADP is healthy. And so these guys take a little time to put on. My biggest problem with Cam Ward is he has no weapons. Who's he throwing the ball to? Calvin Ridley and then Alec Iomanar, the guy you auto drafted last week, and so
We've got
it could be tough.
Hey man, we got Tyler Lockett trying to turn back the clock. He's getting a little long on the tooth as well, but he's also in that offense. And don't forget about Chiga Conquo as well. Look, I think the path is there for Cam Ward to be a producer in fantasy this year, and especially at a position where, let's be honest, the range of outcomes are pretty tight at his ADP. I think he's a fairly safe pick. Whether he was a rookie or a veteran, I'd be interested in him at cost around pick 150, which is where he goes. We only have one running back so far, which is fine with me. I just do not necessarily have much interest in these players here. I'm going with Jalen Warren just because I kind of feel like he's the best available asset right here. But we are looking at a lot of rookies that start to go off the board at this point. I'll leave the running backs up for a second. Cam Scativo with the New York Giants. Bashal Tuten with the Jaguars. Jaden Blue with the Dallas Cowboys. Um, that's kind of, and then Dylan Sampson, who I already talked about. Like this is kind of at the running back position, at least, where things get a little dicey for me with this rookie class, even including Scativo.
One thing I'll mention is in past years, zero RB is a very strong strategy, holding off on running backs until later with, maybe the top guys get hurt or just don't perform, late guys do better, whatever. Uh, but Caleb Johnson came off right before your pick.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, would you have taken him over Jalen Warren if he was available?
Yeah, that's kind of who I wanted. And I thought really quickly about clicking on Scativo just to kind of keep us focused on this rookie class. I don't feel great about that. I still think Devin Singletary has, uh, a lot to say about his role in that backfield this year. Tyrone Tracy, who obviously has an ADP right here as well. It just doesn't seem like Scativo's floor ceiling combination is accurately reflected by that ADP to me.
Yeah. No, I agree with you on that one. I'd be much more interested in anyone else.
Um, Johnson, I think, is going to be a stud. I mean, he's probably going to go right into. He's just going to get the old Najee Harris role in Arthur Smith's offense, right? So we definitely want to have probably exposure to him in our portfolios this season. I have no problem clicking on him whatsoever. But Jalen Warren kind of I think the addition of Johnson allows Jalen Warren to retain the role we've seen him already have success with. So that's why I still feel pretty good about clicking on Warren. These guys have been, at least from a fantasy football perspective, fairly interchangeable in that offense. They basically end up with similar outcomes. Talking about Harris and Warren, I think if Johnson's sliding into that Harris role, we can probably see similar production from the two of them once again here in 2025.
Well, if any of our viewers were here last year, they know the only reason that we're interested in Harris is volume. He's not doing that much on a per carry basis, and so if Caleb Johnson can just step in and carry that volume, we know that they're going to run their running backs into the ground.
So I did just take another rookie. I think the line for the top 10 as far as ADP is concerned Egbuka with Tampa Bay. I needed the correlation with Jalen Waddle with Miami. I just felt like that was a good option. And when we look at Tampa Bay's depth chart this season, Egbuka is expected to be the starting slot wide receiver for the Buccaneers. Now, this is a position that has had a ton of success with Baker Mayfield, with Tom Brady going back a few seasons in a fairly productive offense. So I'm completely fine with taking Egbuka here. I think his ADP is fair. It could even be, going back to our overall thesis here with rookies, it could even be too low, which is why we want him.
Yeah, and this is actually the guy that I had ranked next after McMillan
Okay.
and Travis Hunter. Yeah, I had him third. I had him ahead of all those guys. I'm sorry, Matthew Golden. There were a couple more. Luther Burden fell because of where he landed in the draft. But guys like that, yeah, I like Egbuka's profile the most.
So I know that a lot of our viewers on this channel are kind of here for a lot of Brian, yours, and my DFS related takes week in and week out here with DraftKings, day in and day out here with DraftKings. But, we all play different versions of fantasy sports contests. And I think this is something that's discussed a little bit more in like dynasty leagues, keeper leagues, your traditional kind of season long fantasy content, which obviously I know we all play as well. You brought up Luther Burden. He did come out of college early, out of Missouri. He did have a 36% share of the opportunities in Missouri's offense last year as an underclassman wide receiver. So there are definitely things to be excited about with Luther Burden. But I've also seen a lot of kind of skepticism with him as well. He's one of these guys that sees a lot of targets with a shallow average depth of target, and he's kind of in a comparable class of players looking at recent rookies that just doesn't tend to do well in the National Football League. We're talking about guys who, year in and year out, I used to fall in love with these players, and have been burned so many times. Like an example would be like he's kind of a close comp to like a Paris Campbell, which hasn't worked out. So I think that's why the overall consensus on him is a little bit lower. What do you think there?
I mean, I was down on him as a prospect when I looked into him pre-draft, and then going to Chicago. I don't feel great about Chicago, so. But the thing is, he's going kind of late, and so ADP around 135, I think it's fine.
I am going to take David Njoku here because I feel like he's the best tight end left as far as elite production. Little ahead of ADP, but I didn't really love what else is here. I'm kind of setting up to double tap a couple of these slightly below average quarterbacks for number 2 and number 3 on my roster. I got plenty of outs here. Tua with Waddle, Geno Smith with Jeanty, Trevor Lawrence with Travis Hunter. So when it comes back to me, Chuck, I think that's probably what I'm going to do here.
No, I love that build, taking your top elite guy and then just taking shots on a couple guys at the end of the draft, capable of putting up a spike weeks. As far as Njoku goes, I feel like he is one of the best tight end picks that you can make at his ADP. I just think he's a complete stud. Top 5.
Are we, from speaking of ADP, and I know this is like, not obviously correct by definition, but are we kind of treating this like JJ McCarthy's rookie season? Do we think there's a chance he's kind of undervalued just because he's coming off the injury? No one really saw much from him last year. We obviously have a lot of players on Minnesota going fairly high at the skill positions. Obviously Jefferson, Addison, Aaron Jones, but McCarthy going right alongside some of these other quarterbacks. I don't have a good read on it. Maybe it's a fair price, but I think there's a really good chance he could outperform this, right?
Yeah, I like taking shots on him last year. I'm going to like taking shots on him again this year. I mean, he has some pretty strong receivers. Justin Jefferson, my number 1 receiver in the whole NFL. So
That's not exactly a hot take, but it's good to see you have a little bit of consensus on your side there. I think the people are looking for us not to disparage some rookies like Luther Burden, but maybe give them some options that aren't necessarily being discussed as much in the industry. So, with that in mind, let's make my pick here.
Jaden
All right,
Daniels.
I'm going to go with Trevor Lawrence with Travis Hunter.
Oh, I like it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um, Looking at some of the combine data, so some of your non like statistical on the field stuff with some of these rookies. Um, I got a fourth round receiver that I'm interested in. I'm talking about Dante Thornton Jr. out of the University of Tennessee. Went to the Raiders in the fourth round. He's currently projected to be a backup to Trey Tucker as an outside wide receiver in this offense, kind of that other main wide receiver position aside from Jacoby Myers. And the reason I'm interested in Dante Thornton is he ran a 4.340 in the combine. He's got a metric called height adjusted speed score, a height adjusted speed score of 128, which is the highest in this class of all receivers that ran the 40. So, like, he's got a higher speed score than guys like Tet McMillan, Luther Burden, who we were just discussing, Jaden Higgins, who goes fairly high in contests as well, who went to the Houston Texans. So, I'm not like going out of my way to draft this player every single time, Chuck, but I think, well, for example, on this roster, like I got Jeanty. If I do end up landing a Geno Smith and I want to get a receiver to pair with him, Thornton's on my radar in that kind of build. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And they've got a couple guys that we can consider for late picks. They also have Jack Beck and then Trey Tucker, who's just sitting there on the roster, gives us multiple spike weeks almost every season. I don't see why we wouldn't take shots on any of those guys.
We have quite a few tight ends that got drafted in the second round this past year. We've got Mason Taylor, who went to the New York Jets, Terrence Ferguson, who went to your Los Angeles Rams, and Elijah Arroyo, who went to the Seattle Seahawks here. I think taking some shots on those guys late certainly makes sense as well. But we have first round tight ends in Tyler Warren and Colston Loveland, who have come off the board while we've been talking about this as well. And they go right around David Njoku, who we both agree is a great value. How do you feel about, I guess, all those tight ends I just mentioned?
Well, back to the volume thing, I mean, I think only one of those guys has a very clear path to being a full-time tight end one, getting the majority of the snaps, and that's Tyler Warren. I mean, tell me if I'm wrong, but I feel like all those other guys have competition. Maybe Mason Taylor can, take over the job, but
Yeah, the thing that I think is most interesting to me about the Loveland selection by Chicago from a best ball, a fantasy football perspective, is I think it's given us a completely free shot at some upside with Cole Kmet, right? Who we've
yep.
seen succeed with volume in Chicago's offense, and now he's not really being considered whatsoever. So that, I guess, is one way I'm kind of looking at that here. Back to me: two quarterbacks, two running backs, two tight ends, and we've got Bayshul Tuten here, who I should mention, like on 15 seconds here to pick, had the highest speed score for all running backs in this rookie class. There's just a lot of competition in Jacksonville's backfield, but I'm going to double up on Jacksonville rookies with Trevor Lawrence, Tuten, Hunter, and Trevor Lawrence for one of my stacks here.
It's pretty strong. Tuten. And you're not firm on Tuten being the lead back, are you?
I am not. I'm just interested in the opportunity here, the upside. If again, concept of drafting as if we're right. If I'm right about him getting enough opportunities to be useful in fantasy football, even if it's only a few weeks out of the season, I'm setting myself up, I think, to have a lot of success here. Looking at our ADP, or excuse me, our stack seeker once again. We go to Jacksonville. I'm going to go with Jacksonville, and I'm going to keep Washington on here because I have quarterbacks from both these offenses. In the kind of last third, if you will, of this contest, these are the teams I probably should try to get at least somebody on my roster from: the Colts, the Broncos, the Jets, the Giants, the Eagles, and the Dallas Cowboys. So I think that's what I'm going to focus on as far as my selections here. But I think we should try to interject a little bit more commentary about some of these dart throw rookies, so to speak, in our contest, because I know that that's what the people are looking for here.
Yeah.
Luther Burden
Okay.
just finally came off the board
Hmm.
in this 12th round here. We're now into round 13 after Jack Beck, another Raider that you were just discussing.
Yeah, so I noticed Christian Kirk is next on the list. Everyone's passing on him. There's a rookie behind him, Jalen Nolan. I'm interested in his teammate too, uh, Jaden Higgins. I like both of them at ADP, but Jalen Nolan's going very late. He's basically a free pick. He's a backup to Christian Kirk. Can Christian Kirk stay on the field? Sometimes. But I think he has the opportunity to beat his ADP, and his is a little bit. While he's the backup, I still think it's more clear than some of the other guys we can take shots on late.
I like a lot of these second year players as well. Obviously, looking at Ray Davis, Trey Benson. We took Ray Davis on the last show. Uh, so, I'm not averse to selecting them either. So I'm just kind of thinking about what I want to do next here. Don't see I don't really see a Colt or a Cowboy here that I want to force onto my team. Pat Bryant is a receiver that I've taken a couple times with Denver, though. I think he's an interesting opportunity. Where are we? Pick 150. I'm going to put in that. I still like having three tight ends in this format, and I like pairing tight ends with my quarterback. So we're going to take Zach Ertz to pair him with Jaden Daniels.
And you mentioned Pat Bryant, and it's not a guy that I'm necessarily targeting, but I don't know if I have like Bo Nix, maybe I can make a double stack with him, or if he's the playoff run back, then those are the times I'm going to be drafting those guys.
That was, I think, an aggressive selection of Pat Bryant. I don't know if this here isn't going to show me his ADP, but if we hop back over to our tracker,
180.
181. So
Yeah.
just not, trying to stay in my own head with my own roster. But I think bottom line, rookie or non-rookie, Hack Daddy 88 here, taking a couple of them in a row, Beck and Bryant. If you're only entering a handful of contests, obviously get the players that you're most excited to root for this season. That is certainly part of it, especially at this point in the draft board. There's not like a tremendous amount that you're passing on here that's going to cost you too much there. So I'm on board with that. I don't know if I would have done that there, but I can see why people do it.
Well, especially considering where he's likely to end up by the end of summer, I'd be very surprised if he wasn't going higher than he is right now. He opened at what, 213, so he was basically going undrafted.
All right. So we're at I got two quarterbacks, three running backs, five wide receivers, and three tight ends. So I would like to get a third quarterback. I'm not going to force it with Daniels on this roster, just because I think when you draft Jaden Daniels, you're hoping that he kind of stays healthy and he's the guy most weeks. I've got Trevor Lawrence behind him. I definitely could consider another option here, but the guys that I feel are quote unquote safe. Talked last show about trying to avoid the sketchy quarterback situations. Those are kind of all off the board at this point. So that ship has somewhat sailed here.
Well, it's pretty interesting with Daniel Jones and Anthony Richardson. They started, Daniel Jones was going way late, and now it seems like he's ahead of A Rich, and I think it's going to continue to widen the gap as the summer goes on.
But if I want to get another player, obviously we can. There are opportunities to backstack. Cam Ward right here in the 13th round.
Mm-hmm.
There's still plenty of Titan players someone can get with him, for example, because I think the consensus on Tennessee is fairly low this year, but would not be surprised at all if Cam Ward beats out that ADP. Okay, let's take a look.
Can you show the draft board?
Yeah.
Let's see who's on there. Okay. See who you pick here, and then I wanted to ask you something about the veterans versus the rookie ADPs.
I'm going to go with Hollywood Brown. So fire away.
We've been talking about rookies all show, but something about the veterans, especially the running backs, going a little bit earlier than I think we would expect in most seasons because, as a group, they just way overperformed last season. Do you think that's a bit of I don't know, I guess an extreme reaction? I'm thinking guys like Aaron Jones, Joe Mixon, the older running backs, the 28-year-olds.
Yeah. I mean, they're perceived to be safer than their peers, right? Just because of what we've most recently seen from them, but there's no guarantee there. So, and I certainly am interested in those guys if they fall to me, but I'm not going to be like aggressively reaching for them. I don't think it fits the thesis of what we're looking to do at that position
Mhm.
with our teams here in this type of contest. We're looking for undervalued opportunities, and I think those guys are being drafted closer to their ceiling than we would like.
I like it.
Quarterback is ugly at this point, man. I would almost rather just stick with the two I have than take a shot on somebody who I don't think is guaranteed to be playing a all 17 weeks or b at the end of the season, most especially. Right? Like this is it just kind of feels like unless you need a quarterback, which I do not. I have Daniels and I have Trevor Lawrence. It just feels way too risky to take one of these guys here.
Yeah, and I do like taking three quarterbacks on DraftKings, but I will mention I've made more than my fair share of finals, specifically on DraftKings, and my best finals teams had two quarterbacks. Not
You
even
have made
necessarily
more
two
than
old
your
guys.
you have definitely made more than your fair share. You've also finished 33rd overall in this very contest. So you've been right there for that $2 million prize, and we're hoping to do that again here for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I finished 33rd. You finished first last year, man. NFL playoff best ball champion.
32 spots higher, smaller
Just a
contest,
little bit better.
but yes, it was definitely an exciting thing to do. All right, I have probably got to get more than just Jeanty, Warren, and Tuten here at the running back position, and I'm not gonna toot my own horn. I had to. I couldn't avoid it. I'm sorry. I had to get a dad joke in there. But I think there's still plenty of guys to consider. Rico Dowdle, kind of on the top of the board here. Not going to go there. I'm going to go with Braylon Allen, a second year player behind Brees Hall. We're looking at a Jets coaching staff that doesn't really have any allegiance to Brees Hall. So I think the bull case for Braylon Allen is pretty high this year. There's a lot of ways for him to outperform this ADP.
So you need some help at running back. Are you looking at any of the rookies? I'm seeing Dylan Sampson, Harquez, Hunter, DJ
Mhm.
Giddens, and Devin Neal. I'm interested in one of those guys, but where are you at?
I haven't really selected any of these guys yet. I've only done probably like 4 or 5 drafts in total. As I kind of get more into the analysis here, I've seen the field is, or at least the online analyst community has been talking about Hunter more than the others in what I have read. I'm actually, believe it or not, slightly more interested in some of the second year veteran players in this range, guys that we were on last year. Will Shipley, I think, is now officially firmly the backup to Saquon with Kenneth Gainwell out of the picture there. I like Marshawn Lloyd here with Green Bay behind Josh Jacobs. I even like considering a guy like Miles Sanders with the Dallas Cowboys because I don't think it's particularly clear which direction Dallas is going to go with this backfield just yet.
And that's something, leaning into the uncertainty, we don't know who's really going to get the volume. It's probably a split, but if you can take some shots, you're going to hit on one of them, and I like doing that. Especially, I don't think you're weak at running back, but you have less than most of the other guys in the pod right now.
Yeah. So this is probably an example of a team where maybe the base kind of layout is 3 quarterbacks, 6 running backs, 8 receivers, 3 tight ends, according to some of the stuff we've seen work well on DraftKings in the past. And we talked about that in the first show. I think I might tilt now that I'm only doing 2 quarterbacks versus 3. I'll probably just take that position and take the extra running back here to hopefully find or as I like to say, try to hit a home run with one of these undervalued assets here. And there are plenty of them. Even lower on the ADP list here, I think a player like Zach Moss with the Bengals, directly behind um, Chase Brown, could be interesting. Obviously, we have Taj Brooks going ahead of him as a rookie, so that's I guess where my head is at there. I think Zach Moss still has some appeal. Um, we have rookies, obviously, as well. Monin guy here with the Bears is a player I've seen his name pop up a couple of times. Haven't clicked on him just yet. Alexander Madison with the Dolphins. I mean, we've seen him handle volume before in this league, a couple of different offenses. Help me out here. What are you looking at for running backs at this point, Chuck? Where's your favorite places to go?
Well, like I was talking about earlier, who has a clear path, to be on the field for the first snap of the game, to stay on the field. And so at this point in the draft, I think we're looking at who has a clear path to being the backup. And, guys like DJ Giddens, Dylan Sampson, I think maybe he has a little bit more competition, but just finding guys who probably take over if the starter goes down. And I mean, Giddens has to beat out Tyler Goodson. I don't think Tyler Goodson's terrible, but DJ Giddens should be able to overtake him.
I mean, at this point, he's a round and a half behind ADP. We think Rico Dowdle has like the clear or has the best opportunity to be the clear backup to Chuba, right? So that's probably
Yeah.
someone on this build I should prioritize.
Yeah, he feels like a solid value, definitely going this late. A couple other guys. Yeah, I think that exhausts my late round targets though. DJ Giddens was the last one on the list. Jalen Knoll at wide receiver if you need an extra help. He will be Christian Kirk's backup in the slot.
I'm just looking through some of my rankings here for some other names we can discuss. We've bottom line rookie veteran. We like players that are on good teams. So talked about Dante Thornton Jr. being a player that caught my attention with his height adjusted speed score. I think he's got speed, which plays at that position. Obviously, another player that kind of fits that mold. That's a little bit more dicey, which is why he went later in the draft. This is he actually went earlier. It was a third round pick. What I meant to say was he had less opportunity in college. Didn't really have a ton of targets this past season. I am talking about Isaac Teslaa with the Arkansas Razorbacks. He 116.8 height adjusted speed score, third highest in the class. Had just like 36 targets, I want to say, with the Razorbacks last year. Chuck, is this a player that, because he's on the Lions, we should be interested in?
Yes, and I'm glad you brought him up because this is something I talk about. We we try to evaluate talent, right? But the coaches, the front office, they know more than we do. And the Lions, they gave up some assets to get Teslaa, and so I have to think that they like him, and that's a big thing for me. If the coach likes a player, he's probably going to be on the field more. And while it's not very clear path to getting all of the snaps at this point in the draft, if he contributes a couple spike week games, especially during the playoffs, then I'm going to be pretty happy with him.
Do we think that this player's perception is being held down because people feel some type of way about Elon Musk? Don't answer that. I was just making a bad joke. All right. Coming back to me here in a second. We've got 5 running backs, 6 receivers. I think it's a little early for Teslaa here, so I don't think I'm going to go there. But he's definitely someone I'm looking at for sure. Look, the wide receiver options in general are just really gross here, dude. Right? Like,
Yeah.
Keenan Allen, Edwin Moore, who we took on the last stream, Lockett, De'Ami Brown, Darius Slayton. I mean, we talked about these guys. Why don't I just kind of no, I think I'm going to kind of save that for a minute because I think we can just take Will Shipley, have exposure to the Eagles, and I needed Eagles exposure for my game stacks that I'm trying to get in the playoff weeks.
Did you get your Dallas correlation? Was Jalen Tolbert still available? Were you interested in him?
He's still here, and I think if it comes back to me and he's still there, he'll be an option. But we also have Miles Sanders still on the board as well, so I have an opportunity to get that Dallas correlation a couple of different ways.
Yeah, I talked about some of the veterans going earlier, maybe overvalued, but guys like Miles Sanders, again, if you're in the last 3, 4 rounds, it's all the same. Don't think like, oh, I'm only in the 17th round. I can't take that guy. Take whoever you want after the 15th round. And if you're going to take shots on Miles Sanders, it's probably okay. I did last year. It didn't really work, but maybe it will this year. Trying to see down here. And guys, just in case, download the DraftKings Daily Fantasy app, draft your $20 best ball lineup to play for a share of $15 million. Get that second ticket to play free for a share. $15 million. That's 2 chances for a huge score without ever setting your lineup again. Draft one, get one, only on DraftKings. The crown is yours.
OccupyFantasy.com. We have our best ball ADP tracker that I've been using throughout the show. We have our stack seeker that I've been using throughout the show, somewhat unsuccessfully, admittedly, to track what I should be targeting with my rosters. But these are great tools. They're fantastic to use. I like to kind of, if you got a dual monitor setup, or even if you only got like one big screen, I like to kind of cascade my windows and look at this and the draft kind of at the same time while I'm working on a contest, because I think it gives me the best opportunity to maximize my correlations that I'm looking for. We're gonna do another stream, or we're gonna do a stream this week. I think sometime this weekend, and on that show, Chuck, you and I will be talking about some of the biggest ADP movers since the NFL draft here on DraftKings in best ball contests. I think there's been a lot of action in terms of where players were going when we opened at the end of April and where we're going here in mid-June. And so I think that's going to be a pretty good discussion. And then the nice thing about a live show is that we can take questions in real time and talk about whatever it is that you guys want to talk about and take the discussion any direction that you feel is appropriate as viewers. And that is the biggest reason why we're here. We want to make sure that we're answering your questions about how to attack these contests.
So, Chris, we're down to the last two rounds. What are some of the guys you've been clicking on a lot, and maybe some other guys you want to target that you just haven't gotten to yet?
Well, I think I talked about some of those running backs a little earlier. Zach Moss. I don't have interest in this team, but Raheem Mostert as a backup to Jeanty, on rosters where you don't have Jeanty, if there's any shift for any reason in volume, this is a player that could be a smash, right? So I like him. And I think some of the rookie receivers that we discussed throughout this show that haven't gone off the board just yet are pretty dynamic and interesting to me. Some veterans. I do like Elijah Moore. We have a rookie with the Patriots who actually has gotten a little bit of positive press over the last week or so, Efton Chisholm out of Eastern Washington. He's projected to have some slot wide receiver opportunity. Patriots seem to be impressed with this player. That's kind of a name to watch late as well. So overall, I know I'm kind of all over the place here. I'm just looking at guys that I think have opportunities to score points for me in the regular season. Jalen Tolbert, definitely an option. Another Cowboy in this range that, shut out the USFL and spring football that I like would be Kavonte Turpin. There's just so many different directions you can go down here, and this is a good way to differentiate versus the field, because if you're right about these players and they're the players you need in December and January, you're going to be in a good position.
And we haven't talked about this too much, but I would say just be careful getting too overweight on these end of draft guys. I mean, if you hit on a Kyron Williams or a Puka Nakua, yeah, we're in business. But a lot of the times that's not going to happen. And so I would say just spread out your exposure to the late guys and try not to take the same guys at the end of every draft, together.
So we got 2 picks left. What I have not done is I have not grabbed an Indianapolis Colt. So I don't really know if I want to force that here, but that's just something that does come to mind for me.
That's one thing I'm glad you mentioned that, because we talk about these correlations a lot, and I know in last season I was taking a lot of just week 17 fifth wide receiver, fourth running back on the roster guys just for that correlation when it's unlikely that they even contribute anyway. And I don't think it's bad, but I don't think we should be forcing that.
I kind of like Adonai Mitchell. He's not. We saw him get the volume a little bit last year. I could see that being a thing here, but there's really no one else on Indianapolis' roster that I'm interested in.
Which is fine.
So, and I think to your point, we look at that 8.3% base rate of a player's ownership. Maybe not the end of the draft, because not all these guys are going to be drafted every single time. The best way to differentiate is maybe look at, what kind of correlations do I need? Is there an incentive for me to take an Adonai Mitchell on a team where I don't have interest in an Indianapolis player? Probably not. But on this particular roster, it makes more sense than some other opportunities, right? So that's the biggest reason why I would take a player like this who's projected to be a backup wide receiver in this offense, but I'm playing for a scenario where I need him at the end of the season maybe to step into a larger role and contribute to some production in a game that I'm hoping allows me to experience some success in this contest.
Yeah, just going back to guys that burned us last year. I don't mind it though. I think it's fine.
The good news is DraftKings makes it super easy for you to find a player from a team. I love, at least here on desktop, I love being able to filter by the team we're looking for. That's a really, really nice feature of the draft board here. And I think we're going to round out this contest with a selection of a running back when it comes back to me. I'll put the draft board on here for the final portion of the show. Um, yeah, we'll just kind of see who goes. But I mentioned Devin Singletary. I mentioned Zach Moss. I mentioned Raheem Mostert as guys I'm kind of clicking on routinely here at the end of the contest. So those are the guys that are kind of most on my radar at this point, Chuck. Anybody I'm missing?
I mean, I'm on board with those guys. I'll throw out Khalil Herbert, my most drafted player last year. Not going to take much of him this year, but I would be very upset if he ended up being good and I had none. So I'm still going to add some at the end of drafts. But he's in that same category as those other guys you mentioned. And earlier you brought up Alexander Madison. I don't know if Kendre Miller is someone we're even talking about anymore, but there's a lot of options down here.
If we get Singletary, then I will have successfully hit correlation with the Commanders in every single round of the post season. The Giants in week 15, the Eagles in week 16 with Shipley, and then the Cowboys in week 17 with Jalen Tolbert. With Jacksonville, we got a Jets player in Braylon Allen, and we got Adonai Mitchell for the Colts in week 17. The whole would be the Denver Broncos in week 16. So, it's not going to be a perfect correlation every single time that we do this, but we go into these things mindful of what we're trying to accomplish. And then I think we get closer to our goal than we would otherwise if we were just flying blind, right? So we're trying to attack this slightly more intelligently and set ourselves up for what we need to have success week in and week out. Be a little bit more intentional with our selections. So I'm fine with missing out on one semifinals round correlation with one of my stacks. I think I'm okay.
Yeah, and you're never going to hit on all of those correlations, right? We really only need to hit on a couple. I mean, one in each week would be great, and that could be enough to get us to the next round. Because remember, you got to finish first out of 12 in the playoff rounds to get to the finals. So we really want to give ourselves as many shots as possible to get that ceiling outcome.
Yeah, and we look for don't forget about obviously those mini correlations, mini game stacks, if you will. I got quite a few of them on this roster. Run through them real quick. I've got David Njoku with Jalen Warren. That's a Week 17 game. We've got Egbuka with Jalen Waddle, the Dolphins and the Bucks. That's a Week 17 game. So that's another thing that we definitely use our stack seeker for, is to just kind of find those pairings in the championship round. We want to have as much exposure as possible to high scoring outcomes when it matters most at the end of the contest, where all of the prize money comes into play. All right. I've locked Devin Singletary in here as the player on my queue, so I think that's what I'm going to do, unless the next couple of owners have other plans in mind for me. I suppose as we wrap up this show, we should tie a bow around our top 10 rookie players for 2025 Best Ball contest, Chuck. So really quickly, why don't you give me your list of your top 10 players?
I'm going to give you 11, and this is not top 10 overall. This is my top 10 that I like clicking at ADP. Ashton Jeanty, Ted McMillan, Omarion Hampton, Travis Hunter, Matthew Golden. I have those guys. I mean, some of those guys are different tier, but those are mostly the top guys. And then we got Jaden Higgins, Jaden Blue, Cam Ward coming up next. Jaden Blue, a guy we didn't talk about, but I think he has a path as well to getting snaps. And to round it out for some late round targets, Jackson Beck, DJ Giddens, and Jalen Noel.
Love it. I won't repeat some of the names that you said, but I'll once again highlight. I just selected him on my team. I think we have access to a ceiling if the playing time emerges with Bashal Tuten with the Jacksonville Jaguars. Certainly, the prospect profile is favorable going into the draft this year. We have Dante Thornton Jr. with the Las Vegas Raiders, who let's somebody select him so I can click on him. It doesn't actually look like it. So we've got Isaac Teslaa, who we talked about a little bit as well as an option. So I like those guys as flyers. And then I will give you one final player. I don't believe we talked about too much, but Kyle Williams, the New England Patriots, seems like he can also have a ton of opportunity in that offense this year. They kind of got a brand new look at that wide receiver room with Stephon Diggs, the veteran. We've got Pop Douglas in there, but I think everything else is wide open with the Patriots as well. And Kyle Williams is another name to keep an eye on this year. Chuck, that's going to do it for me on this show. I appreciate you as always. You have anything you want to share before we get out of here?
No, I think we hit on it. Draft more rookies.
That's a great way to conclude the show. Draft more rookies and draft more of them here on DraftKings. The crown is yours. Thanks, Chuck. I'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, shout out to DraftKings for this summer. We'll see you guys soon.